Hey everyone, welcome back to Triple R Reefer. Throwing together another video for you. This one I hope is a little bit better than my usual terrible. Sold the Elegance Coral, in case you're wondering. A couple of little updates, I guess. Got a few more fish, believe it or not. Some lyre-tail anthias. They've made their little nest back in there. There's a male and two females. I was supposed to get 4. One of them did make it through quarantine. No biggie. Got a good deal on them. Gotta love the aggression. Look at that beauty. Man, I'm telling you, if there is a wrasse to have that does work for you, not just a fairy wrasse, that's it. Just a real beaut. Real beaut. Alright, so this video is going to be about what I like to call banking corals. It's an insurance scheme, if you will. But banking corals, I don't think it's really new, but it's not something I see talked about enough. And basically it's a way to insure your coral and also kind of spread the wealth of the hobby. So I put pros and cons together, but I'm gonna do my best to get through them. Hopefully these make sense and they're not too ridiculously stupid. I think it'll make sense. So here we go. The pros of banking corals. Number one, you're gonna have the ability to, okay, let's talk about banking. What is banking corals first? Duh. Banking corals is when you will basically frag a small piece of, maybe even a small coral that you've gotten. So let's take this guy for example, this little red pink millie, and I cut that little right side off. Most people would want this to grow out for a little bit longer. Well, basically what you're doing is you're going to cut that piece off and you're going to give it to a friend of yours, a reefer that you trust. Okay? It has to be someone you really trust. And it also needs to be someone that really knows what they're doing. So just because I have locals to me that I trust doesn't mean that I trust them. I trust them with, say, owing me money or borrowing a piece of equipment. Doesn't mean that I trust them to take my coral and save it for me. So not everyone's abilities are there. Not everyone's skill level is there. And that takes time to build that trust up. All right, so essentially, again, make sure it's someone you trust and someone that has a tank that you feel is going to give you the best chances of that coral surviving. It's kind of like that little system in, where's it, Antarctica, where they put seeds, and your seeds are your insurance. You know, if we lose a crop that we can no longer grow, or the end of the world, whatever it is. But it's the same exact concept. So, you know, you take this little frag and you give it to that reefer. It needs to be somebody that probably has a system that you really respect. It needs to be somebody that has a clean system with no bugs, no pests. It needs to be look at these guys. It needs to be somebody with a system that has a lot of redundancies. Okay, you don't want someone that's right next to you that maybe supports everything that you do, you know, as far as they can grow coral, they got a nice tank, blah blah, but you know they're right next to you in a hurricane and everything's lost together with them. Okay, if you can space it out, that's even better. I'm talking about shipping corals, but you don't have to do that. I have someone that's a few hours away from me. I trust them a lot, and I send them my corals that I have them hold for me. So that's a pro. Number one, you got someone that you trust that can hold a coral for you. But let's just talk about some of the logistics of it. It really sucks when you get a new coral and you go and you're like, hey, look, I'm gonna bank this coral, and you just spent $300 on it, and you're saying, hey, listen, I'm gonna cut this coral, I'm just gonna give it to a reefer, a friend of mine. Okay, they just get a free coral out of it. There's better ways to go about this, and now that I'm further along in the hobby, with this person, I probably would have done it a little bit different. So number one, I probably would have said, hey, listen, I'm going to bank this coral with you, but when it's big enough to cut a frag, I want you to sell it and let's split that money. So it's a win-win for both, both parties, and that kind of helps you recoup money. So one of the cons is that when you buy a coral, you're cutting that little piece of coral and you're giving it away, and that could have been a piece that you could have sold. It's very hard to get over. I promise you. When you're like, hey man, I just spent $300 on this little frag, I'm just going to give it to this guy. There's a couple ways you got to think about that. Number one, you're not just giving it away. You're storing your coral somewhere that is going to be your backup if you lose your coral, which I can promise you when that happens, that's rough, very rough. If you lose a very high-end piece, it will check that gut of yours so fast, it'll make your head spin. You'll be like, oh my God, I just don't even know if I want to do this anymore. I promise you, spend $300 or $400 on a coral and lose it. That sucks. So think of it that way. You're sharing this coral with someone that is going to hopefully be able to repay you back at a later date. If you think of it that way, it's a little bit easier to get over. If you're in it for making money, hopefully it's not all about the money, but it makes things a little bit easier. So another way you could go about it is saying, hey, listen, I'm going to buy this coral. It's $300. Would you want to split it with me? And then I'll give you a bank. Okay. Now both of you have an investment there, and you both, kind of share the burden of cost. That's just another way to go about it. It's very important that you think about this as you do it, though. Okay. So don't just go banking corals with anyone and everyone. Okay. It's not how this is supposed to work. It probably will end poorly for you. Okay. It's very important that you follow kind of the guideline I gave you. Make sure it's someone that's has a great tank, someone that you trust, someone that's got a pest-free tank. Just want to throw corals in a trash bag tank and just watch them disappear on you over and over and over again. You'll be out of the banking business quick. Another thing, I'll touch on this. Don't try to bank all your corals. Meaning that, if this coral right here where my finger is, hopefully you can see it. If that thing died tomorrow, I really wouldn't care. I'm not trying to fill up people's tanks with just all of my corals. I just want them to have all of my nice corals, which I try to have all nice corals, so it's harder for me, but you're not banking everything, because then their tank, they're not going to want to do that. Then you're like, hey, listen, I'm taking up all my room. I want this to be my tank too. So anyway, think about that. It's not to bank your GSP, okay? No one wants your GSP. They do, but they don't want it. They're not trying to share GSPs with you, trust me. All right, I think that makes that point pretty easily. Let's see. I think that's really it. Pros, hey, lose a piece of coral, not a big deal. Get it back in just a little while. Let it grow out, have them frag it, and send it back to you. Let you share corals amongst other reefers. If you got someone that's got really nice corals, they'll maybe hopefully bank with you, you bank with them, or they've got 2 bad A reef tanks. And they're kind of insured. So think of it like that. It does cost some money because you could have sold it, but it also costs money to replace corals that you lose. A lot more pros than cons, I think. Anyway, one thing I wanted to touch on, since I'm under 10 minutes and I usually do a 45-minute video, kidding, is this last video I did about trolls or whatever, people in the haters in the world or whatever. Anyway, I was shocked at how many people commented on that and were like, hey man, don't worry about those haters. They're everywhere. Your tank's awesome, blah, blah, blah. Man, talk about a boost. That's what I like about this hobby. Other reefers, sticking up for other reefers, and supporting each other. That's what it's all about, sharing the hobby. Another quick thing I thought about, and I kind of said, I think I said in the comment, but it was really funny to me. And he was talking about how colonies, we don't get colonies like they do in Australia. Australia, man, they just got the Great Barrier Reef. They go out there, take colonies off, and there ain't really frags over there, just in case y'all didn't know this. There is, but it's not like us around here in the States and in Canada. So I said this, what is it? Buying colonies is the cheat code of reefing. Basically, you get these colonies, you can just throw together a reef tank. It takes away a lot of the fun. The fun to me is seeing growth, seeing these little, this coral right here, this is the Maleficent, has done nothing. I mean, absolutely zero, no bait, nothing, okay? In like 2 years, all of a sudden I got some branches. I love it. It just feels like you're doing something. Then you come over to the like terrible stuff that hasn't done anything at all except pow! Just kidding. Man, that's one that is banked, I promise you. All right, everyone. Thank y'all again for all the support. Everyone subscribing. Seriously awesome. God, as soon as I can start editing, Quite Bob's let me know. All I gotta do is edit. I get to that 1,000 subscribers. I will be learning to do that on my next little set. So, at work. Anyway, thank y'all again. Got some more cool stuff coming. You're not going to believe it. It's more fish. No, I promise I'm almost finished. All right, thank y'all. Last thank you. Seriously, thank y'all for everything. Comments, the likes, the subscriptions. Awesome. And I'll see y'all in the next one.